everyone, my name is Blair Campbell. I'm working on a Regents Bachelor of Arts program at West Virginia University Institute of Technology. This term, I studied writing theory and practice. The course guides us through an in-depth look at various theorists over the centuries. Now we are putting what we learned into practice. I've chosen to make this informative video for anyone who cares about the factors that could deplete the mental health of themselves, their family, coworkers, acquaintances, friends, and virtual contacts. Traditional and contemporary approaches helped me gain rhetorical and writing theory knowledge, and I want to share my thinking and how what we say and do through digital media can have negative impacts on our mental health. Lisa, Ede, and Andrea Lunsford, along with James Porter, are three of the theorists I've explored this semester. Ede and Lunsford discuss audience, and Porter looks at digital delivery. I'm taking it one step further and adding a study by Brian Primack and others to the discussion. They discuss computers and human behavior. I want to show you the connection between the audience, digital delivery, and human behavior. Various theories over the years continue to evolve as digital communication supersedes snail mail, letter writing, and phone calls. How have these things changed or affected rhetoric? What have the multiple avenues of digital communication and therefore expanded audiences done for the well-being of society? I consider mental health to be a huge contributing factor for the well-being of individuals, family units, communities, and basically human existence. Poor mental health can come from a multitude of avenues. I do not think we take into consideration the effects of multiple types of digital communication. The number of digital platforms we can use alter our mental health. The audiences in which we communicate with changes dramatically from platform to platform. Do you consider that aspect when creating rhetoric? Without being aware of the consequences of your rhetorical actions, we can take for granted their impact. I want to bring attention to the changes in our behavior and actions based on the various communications that we even deem to be safe. Audience, delivery methods, and the state of your mental health coexist inside of our communications. I want professional and regular folks to consider these influences and think critically about how your method of digital delivery and who your audience is affects things. By doing so, I hope you will improve and achieve a balanced state of mental health. Let us start with some basic terminology. Rhetoric is the art of effective, persuasive speaking and writing. This lecture in itself is rhetoric. I'm delivering a digital source of spoken word to you, my audience, in order to convey an idea and perhaps convince you my ideas are worth considering. Anyone watching is my audience. Any individual who wants to consider how social media and digital communication affects their mental health, their relationships, and what they continue to communicate to one another, they're all welcome to watch this, and I encourage you to share this information. Let's look at two theorists, Ede and Lunsford. They convey their understanding of the role of audience. Think about the last text message you sent. You felt confident in the fact that the person you sent it to would be the only one who sees it. What other safe spaces in digital communication do you have? Think about emails, group texts, Facebook messages, or Instagram posts, private Facebook groups, or even voicemails you leave. These are all digital communications. Each of these has an intended audience. Now think about what happens when there's a breach of that audience. What happens and how do you feel when something intended for one person suddenly becomes public? Think about how easily that can occur. Does it change your mood when this happens? Think about how it makes you feel. Consider the result on your mental health. Perhaps the whole thing was a mistake. Perhaps it's easy to fix. How could it have been avoided, and was the communication even worth the trouble in the first place? Another theorist, James E. Porter, points out that delivery is just as valuable as audience. Again, think about the forms of digital communication you use. Is the content of the communication you share different depending on what form of digital communication you're using? All these factors will affect your behavior. I'm using an article by Brian Primack and many others that show how increased time spent on social media has been associated with depression and anxiety. And get this, the more platforms you are participating in causes even more stress, anxiety, and depression. So not only does the time you spend on the platforms matter, the number of platforms you're using matters even more, according to the study. The more tangled the web you are weaving in your communication is equivalent to your anxiety and depression. Primack says these associations are strong enough that it may be valuable for the clinicians to ask individuals with depression and anxiety about multiple platform use and to counsel regarding this potential contributing factor. Ede and Lunsford introduce us to Ong. Ong says the writer's audience is always fiction. He emphasizes the complexity of the relationship between consumer and producer, the writer, and the reader or listener. Ong states the reader must learn or know how to play the game of being a member of an audience that really doesn't exist. Think about this. We could argue that we do in fact know our audience in some capacity, or we think we do. If you only use 2 digital platforms to communicate, keeping track of your audience may be easier, and therefore your digital interactions with individuals will be less strained. Our study on computers and human behavior has shown that the more platforms, hence the more audiences you have, the more anxiety and depression you could acquire. Certainly an unintended result of trying to communicate with the masses. Digital communication can assist in creating an online persona that can be disconnected from your personal persona you convey in real life. Porter points out that we need a robust rhetoric of digital delivery to understand how to be an effective rhetorical participant within these environments. Think about the risk we are taking to achieve this robust delivery and the cost of your depleting mental health in order to achieve it. Substituting real-life interactions with digital ones certainly comes with its negative impacts, as Primack and his fellow researchers discuss at length. Digital communication can never replace human interaction. As we move into a more digital world, we see the impact of not having real-life interactions, especially during quarantine, lockdowns, and pandemics. We weave a tangled web as we communicate through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Zoom, Skype, text messages, FaceTime, and regular emails. Consider all these factors when you communicate. Your own personal rhetorical style should be something you maintain and guard as you acquire new platforms of communication in an ever-increasing amount of digital avenues. The goal of this brief video is to shine light on the fact that most of us use multiple platforms to communicate. Therefore, we have various audiences. Take into consideration the audience, the means of the digital delivery, and their effects on your mental health and well-being as you communicate with others. Think about how your communication, your delivery method, and what you are intending your audience to see or hear. Many times with social media, our audience can become an unintended one. Something you might intend to be for your close friends and family may become more public, and your intention can be misinterpreted. Keep in mind that a good friend may not be in that group text message with your coworkers, and therefore not know about the drama at work you have. With all the levels of digital communication, your personal rhetoric could be misconstrued, miscommunicated, and misunderstood. These things can lead to unnecessary anxiety and stress, even depression. Things like race, education, income, living situation, age, and gender play a huge role in everything we've discussed today. Primack and his cohorts say that using many platforms of digital communication can lead to poor cognitive health and bad mental outcomes. Keep in mind the more platforms you use, the harder clear communication is. Spreading yourself too thin can contribute to added stress, pressure, and strains in your relationships. These feelings will make interactions in the future more difficult, and being able to successfully navigate all the different worlds will become challenging. Consider more from Ede and Lunsford. In each instance, the student writing, the friend, employer, neighbor, teacher, fellow readers of the daily newspaper would need, as one of the many conscious and unconscious decisions required in composing, the envision or define a role for the leader. But how she defines that role, whether she relies mainly upon academic or technical writing convention, literary models, intimate knowledge of friends or neighbors, analysis of a particular group, or some combination thereof, will vary tremendously. Now, try and keep up with all that under every umbrella of the digital means in which you communicate. Things get complicated quickly. This complication leads to anxiety and depression, and I have research to back that up. For more consideration on how the universe, the audience, your mental health, and the writer work together or against one another, take a look at Corbett's model of rhetorical interrelationships. It shows the push and pull of each contributing factor. Please know there are many ways in which writing theory can answer questions about the hows and whys of communication. And also know that writing theory and rhetoric will provoke more questions, causing you to search for more answers, which I encourage you to do. Thank you for your time today. I hope you consider your audience, your digital delivery, and your mental health as you proceed to post, share, direct message, and go live. Rhetoric is part of the fabric that makes up our lives. My goal is that we consider all the aspects as we continue to communicate with our fellow human beings. Thank you.